Okay, we are live, and so welcome everybody to yet another episode of That Film Podcast. I'm your host, David Weaver, and with me, as usual, are Brian Salazar and James Blunt. And this week we're going to be reviewing the new Seth Rogen comedy, Neighbors.
Is that a fraternity?
Do you guys want to come in?
I don't think we should. Who's Batman to you?
Christian Bale.
Michael Keaton is Batman to me.
I'm Batman.
No, dude, I'm Batman. This is what Batman sounds like.
It's 4 a.m.
Call the cops.
You have no idea what you started.
Little dramatic.
Sorry, my ball just got in your face.
Are we even now?
Yeah, we're even.
Neighbors.
And I'm going to be leading this off this week for this one. And I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I think this is going to be a fairly short review.
I don't have a lot to say. I'm going to tell you that right now.
Yeah. So let me start off because I was trying to think of the best way to start this off, and I guess is to give my overall feel or my overall opinion of the type of genre that this movie is kind of sorta takes its cue from, which is kind of the frat party movie genre. Movies like Revenge of the Nerds, Animal House, Old School, those type of movies where it's just a group of, well, I mean, in the case of something like Revenge of the Nerds and Animal House, it's a bunch of young people going crazy and just the lunacy that happens from that. But something like Old School, which is I think a little bit more relatable to Neighbors, where they bring in the old versus the young and stuff like that. Generally, those type of movies, those ones I mentioned are probably some of my favorites. But in general, this genre doesn't really appeal to me that much. But what this movie had two things that helped it appeal to me, that made me wanted to see it when I first heard about it and saw a trailer for it. And the first thing is the idea of the dueling neighbors. I mean, it's kind of a classic setup, but I really like the idea of a frat house moving in next door to a family that has a newborn baby, and just kind of like the feuding that goes on between them. It's a perfect setup for kind of like a classic comedy situation. But the second thing that caught my interest was the cast of the film. Now, Seth Rogen, he's like, he's really hit or miss. As we mentioned before and last year, something like This Is the End was definitely a hit, but he definitely has his misses, like The Green Hornet and stuff like that. So you really can't really base the movie off of whether or not if he's in it, if it's going to be any good or not. But I think more or less you have a good chance of it being at least a funny movie if he's in it. If not completely uneven. And the other cast members, Rose Byrne, who plays his wife, I've always been a fan of hers, especially since she entered the world of comedy. I think she's done really well at that. So just about anything she's in, I will generally get my interest. But the real surprise for me for this, not just the casting, but the performance in general, was Zac Efron. Who, I've never really seen anything he's been in. I mean, I've seen bits and pieces of the High School Musical stuff, but I've never really seen anything else he's in. He tried his hand at the sappy romance movies shortly thereafter, ending his career with the Disney stuff, and that stuff really turned me off to him because he was just really playing into the stereotype that he kind of built up for himself around the High School Musical persona. But I really like it when an actor kind of, takes a step away from what made them popular and kind of just goes for it. And I think he really did a great job in this movie, and a really good job choosing to be in this movie, because I think this is going to be a career changer for him, just like it was for Channing Tatum in 21 Jump Street, where he's going to get a lot of people that generally didn't really care for him, but they're probably going to open up and be a little bit more open to seeing stuff he's going to be in the future where normally they wouldn't have been. But aside from the actors and the characters and the premise of the film, the thing that really really surprised me about it. I was already expecting it to be, at least moderately funny, but I was kind of surprised by a lot of the depth that the characters got, especially the frat guys. Zac Efron's character and the vice president of, I think they're Delta Phi, I think is the name of their frat, but the vice president guy played by Dave Franco. I was really surprised that that they went beyond just making them these stereotypical jocks, that they actually made them into real characters, like with real issues at hand. It was nothing like really, it's going to blow your mind or like Oscar-worthy script level or anything like that, but I really thought that added to this movie more than these type of genre films usually get. As for like Seth Rogen and Rose Byrne's characters as the parents next door, the old people next door, I thought they did their roles perfectly. And I think just in general, with their performances in this movie in general, this movie is it's funny. I thought it was pretty fun. I thought it was funny from beginning to end, but it's nothing overly spectacular. Like, I enjoyed the film while I watched it. It's not a laugh riot. Like, I mean, there's moments of downtime in the movie that, you're not going to be sitting there, with a smile plastered on your face. But in the moments where you're not, laughing your ass off, I thought those moments with the character moments really did help kind of bridge you between the scenes that were funny. So in general, I guess what I'm saying is this movie for me, if you want to go off of your number scale, James, I would probably give this movie a solid, probably, I'm going to say an 8. I was wavering between 7 and 8, but I think the movie works for what it is, and there really aren't too many problems with it, aside from too many of the jokes being given away in the trailer, which is a whole other problem that we have with movies in general, not just this one. But I think the movie does exactly what it set out to, and anybody looking for a really funny comedy to go out with your girlfriend, your wife, or just even a couple of buddies, I think everybody will find something to enjoy out of this movie. It's a really fun movie in the end, and I think it's a really good way to start off the summer as far as a comedy goes.
So, Dave, you said my number scale. Are we asserting here that I created the scale of 1 to 10? Because I'll accept that if you want to.
Well, okay. Well, the scale I use on the blog is I use a grading scale, and I would give this movie probably a B.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
I do tend to use a number scale.
Okay. I use the word scale.
So what were your guys' thoughts on the movie?
My thought was that as I was sitting through this movie, like about the first third of the way through the movie, I was getting concerned because I was thinking that this movie it has some smiles in it, but it's not. There's no belly laughs. And that's concerning me. Like, this is just going to be an okay movie. I'll say that I think the pacing of the movie was pretty perfect because it starts off slow and it builds, and there's more and more laughs as you go along. And in a comedy, if it's reverse, where there's belly laughs in the beginning and then there's nothing at the end, that's dreadful and it's really hard to get through. So I'll say that in terms of the pacing, this movie did it right. As the movie ended, it still was not this phenomenal comedy that I had hoped it would be, but it was passable. You gave it an 8. I'd say I'd give it a 7, something like that. I mean, it was enjoyable, but it was not at all phenomenal. But like I said, it does build nicely, and it goes somewhere, and I think almost all of the characters have some level of character development. All of the primary characters, because there are 100, side characters that we don't see anything development of. But of the primary characters, there's a lot of character development. Some of it unexpected. I'll say with the Dave Franco guy, like I didn't think, like, and even some of it, the Zac Efron character, when they're trying to catch him doing something bad. He has a turn that is surprising. And so there's a lot of good stuff here. There's a lot of laughs. The stuff about the airbags, I wish that hadn't been in the trailer, because the moment that the airbags got stolen, I was like, okay, here it comes. And if that had been a surprise, I might have like launched out of my chair myself, like, because that is such a shocking and sudden visual, and like it's like this movie that's been playing it pretty straight so far to go pure slapstick and like almost to the impossible, because I'm pretty sure he would have been dead if something like that happened to him. That I really wish that had been a surprise for me. I would have enjoyed it so much more. Like you said, my interest in this movie, it was all about the setup. This whole thing about this family who just wants a nice quiet evening, and this frat house that's bumping every night of the week. As someone who enjoys his rest and has been awakened by house parties and birthday parties, I can totally appreciate that. And about Zac Efron himself, as you were talking, Dave, I was thinking about it. I mean, I've seen him in one or two things. Certainly not the High School Musical stuff, because I'm like about 18 generations too old for that stuff. But like I saw him in Hairspray, and I think I saw him in some other things. And I've always, of what I've seen of him, I've always kind of respected him as an actor. And because Hairspray has some like underlying, they're not there. Some of them are on the surface, like messages about racism and stuff. And so, I've respected his acting ability, and he's one of those actors who, like a lot of stars of his age, he's starting to get to the point where he's starting to get arrested and stuff like that. So, like, I don't know if that's orchestrated or not to try to get out from this Disney character that he has, but I thought he was fine in the role, and I even thought Dave Franco was good, and Seth Rogen, and all of those characters, they did their role, I think, the way that the director probably wanted them to. I think the source material is a little bit lacking, though. There could have been a few more laughs, and I think this movie would have been a lot better. Because, like you said, there are down periods where I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, this is a comedy, and my face is either... My mouth is either a straight line or it's downturned, and I don't think that's what's supposed to happen.
Were you surprised? Were either of you surprised that I think it was like midway through the movie where the feud actually stopped for a while? Like everybody kind of went back to their own thing for a little bit.
I was wondering where it was going to go from there, because it seemed like everything was resolved at a point.
Yeah.
Zac Efron makes the point a little bit later in the movie that, I may graduate, but this frat house is always going to be here, and you're always going to have this problem. And then I was like, oh, well, then it has to go to a final resolution.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's a little bit of a spoiler, I guess, so maybe I shouldn't have said that.
Yeah.
But the movie has ups and downs, and I think it needed just a little bit more tweaking, and it would have been a much better film. But as it stands, I enjoyed it. I just didn't love it. It's kind of like what I said with Spider-Man last week. I'm not hating these movies. It's just that I kind of expected more.
Well, additional Twinkies would have been good too.
Oh, so Brian, what did you think of it?
So maybe I came into it a little bit differently than you guys. First of all, I really didn't watch too much of anything in the trailer, except I did see what happened with the airbag scene on a TV commercial or something like that. But other than that, I pretty much only saw the movie posters, which to me was funny by itself, of a cut Zac Efron and Seth Rogen next to each other, pretty much without their tops on, which was by itself makes me want to go see the movie anyways.
I love that comment about his body being a V shape pointing down to his penis. That's great.
So the other thing I wanted to bring up too is since I'm recently married, this movie kind of surprised me in covering a lot of things that I now go through on a daily basis.
You might want to tread carefully here.
When it comes to relationships.
You're digging a hole, man.
So a lot of those things that happened was kind of funny that appeared. And
So you have pizza with ranch dip in bed?
that's a huge spoiler, Dave.
That's in the trailer.
It is?
Yes.
Oh my god. Okay. So anyways, I'm glad I didn't see too much of this trailer that you guys are talking about. But when you put everything together with, me enjoying This Is the End last year, I was definitely going to see this. But at the end of the day, I'm also thinking about Seth Rogen needs to tread a little bit carefully here. Because we do talk about how Adam Sandler seems to be making movies just with his friends. And I'm starting to see a lot of the same people over and over again in his movies. I don't know. Like, if I can't have the popular Franco, I'll have his brother instead. That type of thing, And I kind of like how Zac Efron was in there as well because it's something new and different. But I would have to say that the storyline with the frat, I didn't really care too much about. I cared more about what was happening in their personal life and what they were going through before, because she obviously had an issue of being at home all the time, and wanting to go out, and him not really seeing that. And it just seems to be glancing over because they have this other story going on with the frat parties.
The movie didn't address that at all.
Yeah. And they bring it up a few times in the movie as well. And all I could really take from it was, okay, these two were pretty much a party couple, or back in the day, and then they all of a sudden got married and have a kid, and things changed at that point. He seemed that his life hasn't changed much, but her life has changed drastically, where she can't really do things, like she can't go out.
Well, but because she's a stay-at-home mom. I mean, he's working, and he kind of seems like a screw up. I wonder if the family would be better off if she went to work.
Yeah.
But they do not address those things in this movie.
And him doing those certain things while at work kind of makes me think, dude, you have a family and kids, you can't really do that shit anymore. So it doesn't make me really, appreciate or like the guy to begin with. Of course, he does funny things and everything, but I kind of wanted to see more of that relationship than anything else. That gives to my props and to some of the characters that you didn't point out yet. The first one is his friend, which is, I think, Ike Barinholtz. I thought that his scenes were pretty funny in the movie.
Which character?
His friend, Ike Barinholtz, is the name of the actor.
Oh, Seth Rogen's friend?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that guy was pretty funny.
Yeah. It seems like an unknown character. I haven't seen him in any other movies.
He has magical healing powers.
Well, yeah, I guess.
He also has magical powers when it comes to impersonations. That scene in the car where they were calling President Barack Obama, and that was really good.
Well, him trying to get Seth Rogen out of the office to smoke some, and he had some pretty good stuff going on there. I guess the one thing I would say, well, another character that you guys didn't bring up either is the baby. I don't know who that baby was, but dude, they picked the perfect baby to be in this movie. First of all, to find the parents that were okay with them cussing every other word, but also just the way his facial reactions were. I thought they were pretty great. So, good job on the director for catching those scenes, and good job on the baby for performing those things. It was perfect. And then when you talk about the frat story, that kind of turned toward the end of the Franco kid kind of knowing where he wants to go in life, and finding out that the Efron is kind of just stuck in nothing, doesn't quite know what he's going to do. Was kind of okay, but when you have the finale of what ends up to his character, you're just like, oh, that's it? You kind of talked for 15 minutes about this, and this is what ends up happening to him. He doesn't try to do better than that.
Yeah, that was kind of weird.
Comedy laugh. I understand why they did it for the comedy, but I don't know.
Yeah. Well, he said he was going to night school to get his degree, but...
Yeah. And I'm thinking to myself, well, you're in college for, 4 years, 3 years, whatever it is, and now you're going to night school to get a degree? I mean...
He's kind of the poster child for why you shouldn't party throughout your entire stay in college.
Yeah. Okay, I'll give another shout out to a character that I like is the cop, the guy who played the cop. First, I thought it was James, and then I thought,
Oh, nice. Oh my God! I gotta make sure James isn't hung up.
I'm here.
There, okay.
So I thought that was kind of funny.
The whole Garfield thing when he made
Oh,
the
yeah.
guy start licking himself.
You realize
And
he kind of had no idea what Garfield is.
he said what the cop says, like, I love messing with you guys when you're high.
Yeah. You like lasagna, don't you?
That was pretty good.
So overall, I would say the movie, I would agree with James, is pretty much about a 7 or so in the scale. I just wish there was more storyline between those characters as a family. I think it would have been a little bit more interesting.
Yeah, it's funny you bring that up, and I start thinking like they were definitely had like moments where they were leaning towards that. Like about halfway through the movie, during that lull moment where the movie kind of takes a breath when the two groups aren't feuding with each other. I think Seth Rogen was the one that said like he kind of misses the feud. Like he kind of wishes that they were still going at it with each other. And I think the movie maybe missed an opportunity there to use this feud to fix the marital issues that were kind of hinted at towards the beginning of the movie, where the two of them were, they weren't out partying anymore like they used to, and the wife was at home and she, not feeling like, or whatever her issues were with that. But I'm just saying, like, if the movie would have found a way for their battle against the frat party to bring them together to realize what they have been trying to do, or somehow or another, maybe that would have been a better character arc for them.
Yeah.
Well, I think part of the problem of the movie is that those characters, the parents, are at times they are not sympathetic enough, because I think the movie needs for them to be, for you to have to care about them and for them to be sympathetic characters. Sometimes they're just outright jerky, not just to the frat, but to each other, and I think that's a problem. And also, like, an issue I think that would have tied this together a little better is because they keep harping about how the frat is having these parties at all nights of the hour, and that they can't get any rest. And if we were to actually see like the effects of sleep deprivation on them, like him at work and like maybe getting in trouble at work because of his lack of sleep, or her like struggling to take care of the baby. But it's on the one hand we see them complaining about not being able to sleep, but we don't see the effect of that.
No, that's true.
And like all of this stuff would have gone towards making them more sympathetic, which would have drawn a deeper line between these are the good guys and these are the bad guys. But as it is, it's kind of, they're both shades of gray, and I didn't know who I was rooting for, because the way that they painted this, the frat was kind of justified in their feud against the family because they felt that the family had kind of done something to them, and so it's hard to choose a side.
And it doesn't help that, like what you said earlier, that they made Zac Efron not a bad guy.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
It's like there's that moment you mentioned earlier about the sting or whatever, and you see his true colors, and you're kind of surprised by it. But not just that, but there's also the moment in the beginning after their first phone call to the police, when he goes over and he's talking about how saddened he is by the fact that he broke his promise, and he kind of, at first I was kind of like, oh, he's just messing with him, but then when he handed him the radio, the walkie-talkies.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh, he was being genuine.
Right.
I was like, and it's stuff like that. I think that backs up what you're saying, is that they really didn't draw a line. They kind of made both sides kind of both guilty of going too far, but not really giving you any way to really choose one over the other.
Because they led us down to think a certain thing, because if you remember when they first invited the couple over, they kind of did it begrudgingly. They did it because they were like, we don't really want these old people, and I like how 30 is old, but they didn't want these old people at their party, but if we don't make friends with them, then they're going to be a problem for us, so we should kind of try to make nice. So I thought all of this is a charade. Like, all of this partying with them and hanging out with them is a charade, and they really hate these people. And the opposite is true. They actually like them and were offended when Seth Rogen kind of breaks a promise, or they perceive that he broke a promise.
Yeah.
And so, it's this mixed tone that made it hard to to get invested in this movie.
Yeah, because the two of them bonded, like in that backyard scene when they were doing their different. Also, one of my favorite things in this movie is the generational gap and how well defined it is. Their whole different, which one has the more correct Batman was
impression. Yeah.
Yeah, that was really good, and how the callback to that was actually really good too during the end with their showdown.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, how they bonded over that, even their differences and whatnot. I don't know. Yeah, it really, the movie, the more we've talked about it, the more uneven this movie really does feel to me. After all, even though I still think I still enjoyed it, but there were definitely some issues there on maybe on the script level. But yeah.
Okay.
I don't know. And does anybody else have anything else to say about it?
I think we hit all points.
Yeah, I think we talked longer about it than we actually planned on.
That's definitely true from my perspective.
But I think we're safe
we'd
to
be
wrap
out of here by now.
I think we're safe to wrap this up. I mean, I guess the general consensus is that if you're looking for a fun movie, go check it out, but don't expect it to blow your mind.
I think it's a really good date movie.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah. Since it hits like those, the different generational platforms or marks, like it's good for older couples and younger couples. So,
yep.
I want to say that there's no one in Hollywood with more, I guess, like confidence about his body and his self-image than Seth Rogen, because he's able to show himself in like not just show himself in unflattering ways, but side by side with like almost perfection. Like they have this scene in where Seth Rogen is having sex with his wife, and it's like this this albino bear is mauling this woman.
And she's is she so tiny and petite?
Exactly. Yeah. And then they have the scene where one of the frat boys is doing the same, and it's like you're watching a porn. And like I would, if that was my body, and I'm not, he probably has a better body than me, Seth Rogen, but I would not want to be side by side like with that perfection. And then it's literally done side by side at the end of the movie.
Yep.
So I mean, he has a lot of courage and like self-awareness.
Yeah. Yes, he does.
All right, so Godzilla next week.
Yes.
This better be good, and be careful. Reviews are starting to come out already.
Watch out for Fiat commercials.
Yeah. Which again, I just saw on TV. James, you have to see this commercial.
I'm not watching a commercial. I might not watch TV for the rest of the week, so I don't get this spoiled.
Just watch cable.
All right, I'm gonna wrap this up for us. So, like usual, if you want to catch any of our old episodes, you can find us on YouTube. You have two different avenues to find us. You can find us on YouTube for our video reviews, which is at That Film Podcast for YouTube. I will get a more definite film URL for that here in the future, but right now, just go on YouTube or search That Film Podcast, and you'll find us. Or you can go onto the website at lightsremoteaction.com, follow any of the links on there through iTunes or the RSS feed, and subscribe to our audio version of the show. And get any of my latest reviews on there as well, which I should hopefully be updating here. I've been really behind on that lately. Sorry, but I've been doing a lot of stuff for the video portion, and that's been getting me behind on a lot of my usual stuff. So I got a lot of house cleaning to do on my review front, my written reviews. But yeah, like Brian said, we'll be back next week with Godzilla. So yeah, until then, everybody out there, take care. Have a good week. Hasta.